Developing perfect aim is the goal for many gamers around the world. From crispy flicks to perfect one clips, reaching that pinnacle of aim is what we all strive for. That's why in this video, we're going to help you further develop your aim and optimize your improvement path towards that perfect aim. Now, this is part 2 in our Road to Perfect Aim series, so if you missed the first part, you can check it out in the links down below, and while you're there, check out the Saudi Esports Academy. We offer courses for many of the top esports players and professionals around the world. So whether you want to make your mark in pro history or get a job in esports, we got you covered. Check it out right now in the links down below. Now, in order to get great aim, you need to understand first what even is aim. And at the end of the day, it's simple: cause and effect. In order to get better at aiming, you need to get better mouse control. And mouse control is the ability to move your mouse in the exact way that you want to. And it sounds simple, but it really is not. We can make it simpler though by breaking it down into 3 separate components: accuracy, smoothness, and speed. Accuracy is the ability to move your hand so that your crosshair moves from its original location to its intended location. You'll be able to tell if your accuracy is good based on whether you can aim on things with minimal micro adjustments, so those little fingertip movements we covered in the last video. The next thing that gets built is smoothness, and this is just your ability to move your hand in a fluid motion with no stops, no stutters, or no interruptions. This doesn't mean that you can't be moving your hand at times, but it's also the most clear indicator of when someone can't control their mouse. If your aim looks like you're writing with your non-dominant hand, then this is a big issue. And finally, there's speed, which is, well, speed. I'd say speed naturally improves as you get comfortable with smoothness and accuracy, but it's heavily recommended that you actually focus on building speed whenever practicing your aim. This is because in a real game scenario, you're not going to have the time to lightly jog in a fight, admire the view, and then slowly aim at enemies' heads completely unpressured. The 2 main reasons why we single these 3 things out: it makes it very clear to see the current benchmark of your skill, and it also gives you an understanding of what things we need to do to single out and focus on in order to improve quickly. These are the 3 building blocks of your aim. Now, from these, you're going to get types of aim that are going to use different parts of your aim more or less, and there are several different types. First off is tracking aim, which involves smoothly following a target consistently, an important skill for fast-moving enemies, especially in close quarters combat or using a higher rate of fire weapon. Typically more common in games that are going to have a higher time to kill. Now, next up is flicking aim or snap aim, involving quick movements from your crosshair from one target to another, often with a sudden rapid motion. Flick shots are commonly used in simulations where you need to react quickly to an unexpected enemy or make precise adjustments to your aim. And different shooters are going to require different amounts of tracking or flicking. So imagine most games would require a large combination of the 2. Here you can look side by side what tracking would look like as opposed to flicking, and the different amounts of hand movements that are going to go into each one respectively to the type of aim. Now, these aim styles are pure mechanics and are going to be transferable across multiple game titles, but what about the types of aim that require game sense? Pre-firing involves anticipating an enemy's position and shooting before they come into view, often based on sound cues, map knowledge, or earlier visual indicators. The style of aiming that you choose in this situation can vary. If you see someone enter a building and you understand the speed of the enemy character, you may find that visualizing and tracking the enemy's movement through the wall in the direction of the next available choke or sight line helps you land more shots on a consistent basis. Having said this, it is more likely you would just flick straight to the sight line and wait. This action of holding an angle relies on something called crosshair placement. This is a term that many of you are going to use and know if you come from tac shooters, but a lot of other game types are not as heavy on crosshair placement in the learning of the game, even though it's still a fundamental part of your aim and can greatly increase your accuracy and your consistency when using it. I want you to look at this doorway. If I only had 1 bullet to kill an enemy, where exactly would you want me to aim? It wouldn't be here, and this would be better, but it probably won't kill them, and you would obviously want to aim here. But remember, when we started talking about this analogy, we were talking about pre-firing or crosshair placement, which means this opponent wouldn't actually be on screen yet. So once again, you would have to rely on your ability to visualize them. This is why aim is so heavily dependent on game sense and is going to vary greatly depending on the game you play. You know, doing this on games like Overwatch may be more inconsistent or at least harder to learn in comparison because there's going to be a larger range of character models, bullet hitboxes, projectile speeds, and even speeds of a character can travel differently. But if we compare this to games like Valorant, many of these variables are more isolated and they stay the same from character to character, and it's easier for you to predict things like head height, how enemies are going to peek and take certain duels. Thankfully, in these game titles where holding angles and crosshair placement are more important, they are often visual etchings or indicators in the map design to help prompt players where head height is, so you don't always have to visualize it every single moment. Now, this is where we come full circle, because it's important to understand that when you have better flicking, more consistent flicking that you practiced, it's easier for you to deal with variables that you cannot control. For example, you have crosshair placement in a very specific location you think enemies are going to peek from, and they use an ability or they fly around the corner in a place you don't expect. And you know that you have a small window of time before that person is going to kill you, and you need to make a play. And this is where your flick skill and the skill you have learned really come into play. And it showcases how you can win an engagement even when you made the wrong game sense call or when unpredictable factors come into play. Think about game sense and having good crosshair placement as a core of your consistency, but the better you are at other aspects of your aim skill, the more tools you have to deal with variables and variance. It's having an extra skill set that you can rely on in hard times or unpredictable times, and this is going to happen a lot to you in aim situations, and this is really where you can find that consistency level but still find ways to go above and beyond and outplay players that really on paper you weren't prepared for, but that didn't matter, you still ended up winning the matchup anyways. I would say in the long run, you want to ideally be able to always take the right fight, but then also win a good amount as much as possible of fights that are wrong fights or fights that on paper you should lose. But that's part of developing our aim further because we want to win as many of these type of fights as possible, but also have the fundamentals down to take the right fights whenever we can. Now, I also want to quickly mention how your movement can greatly affect your aim. Understand that the more you are moving, you are at the same time getting less targetable by the enemy because you're harder to hit, but also greatly decreasing your accuracy in those moments. Oftentimes, your movement should correlate to your weapon's lethality, as in, if you're going up against another weapon that has higher levels of lethality, as in if they're precise, they will kill you far quicker, you want to minimize their accuracy at the cost of your own because you would rather the fight get scrappy or drawn out. A great example of this is if the enemy has like a Vandal and you have a Stinger in Valorant, you want to create a situation that reduces the enemy's lethality with a precise gun that has higher strength on paper, but because you're moving, running, and gunning, you're using your weapon's strengths in that isolated engagement. And this is a really common fundamental that you can use in any aim game. Let's take Overwatch, for example. If your Widowmaker up against a Tracer, is that Tracer's job to extend the fight in a way that makes it so they are not minimizing their movement. They're not being easy to hit because they have to get hit one time by the Widow, and the Widow wins the fight. And the Widow is trying to make it so the shot is as easy as possible for them to hit, and they're trying to maximize their lethality, as in they're trying to minimize their movement in this fight. As a general rule of thumb, the higher the time to kill, the less you want to move, and the more you want to play to that high time to kill with more accuracy, hence not moving a lot to mess up your accuracy. And if you have a lower time to kill, you would much rather move more so that your enemy has a chance or opportunity to miss more, and you can have a prolonged fight because your time to kill is less than the enemy. So you would much rather have fights where both sides are missing because that levels the playing field and you can close that gap with your movement. Now remember that the best players on the planet do not beat their opponents by out-aiming them 100% of the time. They do look for opportunities to take gunfights that benefit them. Beaming someone on the high ground when they can barely look up and see you would be examples of taking a high percentage gunfight. And if you learn how to take gunfights intelligently, you can trick everyone in the lobby to thinking that you are better at aiming than you actually are. But keep in mind, the better at aiming you get, the more of these high percentage gunfights you will convert on and actually secure it 100% of the time. And in addition to that, the better your aim gets, the more low percentage gunfights are gunfights that you should really lose. You know, you're getting shot in the back when you can't see them, or they're fighting you from the high ground, or they have better weaponry than you, but you still turn the tables on them because your mechanical skill makes up that difference. Now, down below, you're going to want to check out the Saudi Esports Academy, where we run boot camps from many of the top pros and professionals around the world. So if you want to get amazing aim and pop off, or you want to build a career in esports, you're definitely going to want to go check it out, and smash that like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. We have a lot more coming, so make sure you stay tuned. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.